can start.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. In view of rising COVID figures and the need to mitigate the health of councillors and officers alike, we are holding this licensing meeting virtually. Although this meeting does not meet the requirements of the Constitution, it does allow all members of the licensing committee to safely discuss and ask questions on the report of fees and charges. This also further allows members of the committee to raise any issues with the licensing minutes that need to be followed up. A quorum-only formal licensing meeting is being held on the 13th of January at 4 o'clock, which meets the requirements of the Constitution and legislation on committee meetings and will further ratify the discussions and decisions from this virtual meeting. At the end of the fees and charges report discussion, and when reaching the recommendations, I will ask members to indicate their support for the recommendations. I'd just like to remind all the members that this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. Can I ask whether we have any apologies apart from the two that Councillor Pico, somebody else? And us, do we have any more apologies?
Councillor Liz Morris.
Thank you. Any urgent business? I don't think we have. Declaration of interest. Councillor Tucker.
Yes, my wife Grace is a market trader, so could potentially be affected by a decision around fees and charges.
Okay. We don't have any deputations as far as I know, Nas. We have the, sorry, did somebody say anything?
No deputations.
Thank you. The minutes. Can you please indicate, can you see the minutes on the licensing committee held on 21st of June 2021, I almost said 19, 2021 as a correct record? Do we agree the minutes? I hope you have them.
There's some hands up, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Harrison and then Councillor Williams.
Are we going through each one at a time?
Well,
because I have a point, but it's not on the one that you just mentioned.
Right. Let's agree this one first, and then Councillor Williams.
Yeah, I think it's now is the page 37. Attendees listed as Councillor Corley Williams. So just to confirm, I wasn't there. It was Councillor Corley Harrison.
Okay.
And then on page 105, where I was there, none of the councillors are listed as attending.
Oh.
Okay, they were both my points as well. So
oh,
yeah.
Excellent. Can we, Nas, can you correct all that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Do we, with the corrections in mind, do we agree the minutes of the 21st of June 2021 as a correct record with amendments, obviously? As far as I can see is yes.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, thank you. Can we also note the minutes of the licensing committee and the special licensing subcommittees from June 21 to December? It's quite a lot of them. Can I just advise whatever we need to go through each one of them, or do we just note all of them? Because they've already been agreed by panel members over the time.
Chair, Chair, can you hear me?
Hello, Rich, welcome.
You know, I've been shouting here for ages. I just don't understand what's the point of all these minutes being listed. I mean, they're obviously being looked at by the relevant parties who were part of these licensing meetings. What's the point of it coming here now?
As I understand, I don't know if I'm wrong, but as I understand, they have to go to the parent committee. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, minutes don't have to go to the parent committee. Minutes are relevant to the committee that makes the decision, not some other austere body.
Okay, can I ask?
You can't do anything about it. What can be, if the minutes are wrong, is a committee who dealt with it can make the corrections. Because we don't know whether they're wrong or not, because we weren't there.
No, I do understand your points. Can I ask advice from the officers? If anybody can advise, yeah. Michelle?
Yes, Chair, the decisions are coming to the committee for noting. So it's not really the minutes, it's the decisions that you should just be aware of and noting. It's not for you to, look at the minutes or have any or comment on the minutes. It's just for noting these are the decisions that have been made by the subcommittee.
That's right.
That being the case, then all we need to come to this committee would be a table of decisions made since we last met. You don't need all this. You just won't need the decision making in a tabulated form.
Councillor Williams and Michelle, I don't know if you want to come back.
Sorry, I'll lower my hand now. Maybe Dale can respond to that in terms of a table, Dale, of the decisions rather than the minutes and the full decisions themselves.
Yes, I'm happy to take that suggestion forward for next time. The minutes really should be coming through, or decisions made should be discussed by the parent committee to look at the consistency and how things have been managed, and to see if any, learning points really from the various subcommittees in terms of that need to be fed out to the wider committee.
That was my understanding as well. Councillor Williams and then Councillor Blake.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I found it rather helpful to have all those there, because you can see what decisions other people have made on their committees and the reasons why, especially when they're quite controversial. So I'm disagreeing with you, Councillor Rice. I quite like having them all there. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blake.
Well, I was going to make exactly the same point, Chair. I mean, presumably you read the decisions, and then if you want to look at how the committee arrived at the decision, then you've got the minutes. So, I mean, I don't think, obviously people can read through every word. I mean, we're probably expected to, but I mean, I read the decisions and then go back and look at the minutes. So I actually think it's quite useful, to be honest.
Thank you. And Councillor, I'll always just say, look, I always say, I just say the last bit of yours.
That's all right, Gina. Don't worry about it. We're all friends on this committee.
Yeah,
I was going to
ask
if that table form might be something quite useful, but more of a year-end summary type thing, so we can see how many license applications have been, rejected or whatever. I don't know. Maybe we already do that, Dale, on regulatory in the past or whatever. But
yes, so
also,
it should be
like an unusually large number of reviews this year. So perhaps it's just a bit unprecedented. We have so many minutes in one go.
There has been an uptick in reviews because trading standards seem to have brought some through, and residents have been active as well in the past year or so. But yes, so a tabled document will come through to the parent committee of all the applications that have been deemed granted under the Licensing Act 2003. Just to give you a flavour of the amount of new applications, variations and so forth that have been dealt with for the last year, but I will be doing that for the next time, and that will just be a list of them all. It won't be with any.
But could we also have one for the reviews where it is, this is the list of reviews that have taken place,
Fine.
This is how many have resulted in withdrawal of license, this is how many hours have been reduced. So I think that would, and then we can have the percentages and we can know whether we're being overly harsh or not so, I suppose. Because otherwise it's just a list of applications really, isn't it? I suppose we're not involved in the ones that are just approved. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. We've certainly been very busy, and we're still going to be busy the rest of the year. There's a lot of them coming in, a lot of licensing. Okay, so we agreed to note the minutes of all the licensing subcommittees, which is from June to December. Is that agree? Oh, well, yeah, we noted to agree that, I hope.
Yeah,
You want to come in? Sorry.
I think you should be saying something about the decisions. It's not just noting the minutes, but you should say something about, you know, about the decisions.
I don't know what we're supposed to say. There are a lot of minutes. There are a lot of. I count about 17 panel meetings in the last few months. So, and each one is different. I don't know what sort of things you like to be said. As to say, really.
Saying you got the minutes, but you should also make a note of the decision. That's the important thing that comes out of the meeting, the decision.
Yes, I suppose so.
Chair,
yes.
Chair, can I suggest maybe as part of the decision therefore for this is that if you're agreeing the minutes or confirm and signing the minutes of or noting the licensing committee, the licensing subcommittee meetings and so forth, and also for a further report to be brought to the licensing subcommittee relating to reviews.
Okay.
For the last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that
and all applications deemed granted. Yeah. Under
so
licensing Act 2020.
A breakdown of the outcome of all these meetings. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Is that agreed by members? Okay. I see heads saying moving. Okay. Thank you very much. In that case, we'll move to agenda 7, and it's page 161, and this is about the review of the fees and charges. The licensing officer, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. So, Chair, this is really a business as usual report. It does come every year. The Council's income policy requires the annual review of the level of fees and charges levied upon service users. And the aim of the review is to ensure that income generated ensures full cost recovery. There's a small number of items related to certain approvals and consents and permits and licenses that cannot be made by the executive and are therefore reserved for consideration by the licensing committee. The report proposes an inflationary increase for fees for those licensing regimes where the council has the power to set its own fees for 2022-23, and the fees really are to enable the council to recover its costs in managing and administering those particular licensing regimes. The financial position of the council supports the views that the levels of fees and charges should be maximised and commensurate with the full recovery of costs, taking into account all relevant factors, including the effect of service users and any consequential demand for services. A licensing scheme must be reasonable and proportionate to the cost of the procedures and formalities under the scheme and must not exceed the cost of those procedures and formalities. Failure to do this could result in the authority levying a fee that is subsequently considered to have been set unlawfully. It's a requirement within the London Local Authorities Act, which covers the street trading side, for instance. Fees are reviewed annually and to ensure that fees are set to cover the full cost recovery to the local authority. There is case law from the Hemmings case law v Westminster Council that concluded that the amount of fee is required to be determined every year. And further to that, a local authority was precluded from making a profit from the licensing regime. So the recommendation for the licensing committee is to approve the inflationary increase being put forward in Appendix 1. And in terms of the alternative options considered, fees have not been increased by Haringey for the past 2 years. Well, the licensing fees, I should say, have not been increased for the last two years. We have sought to support businesses, and members have voiced concerns in the past about the cost of street trading in particular. We cannot remain the same this year due to the cost of administering the licensing scheme, which is impacting on council's budget. Licensing Act and gambling premises are already set at the statutory maximums and make up a significant portion of the fees collected. gambling premises income is generally decreasing due to the changes in law on fixed odd betting terminals, which has seen betting shops closing down and annual fees no longer being paid to the licensing authority for those closed premises. Consideration has been given to reducing the discretionary fees such as street trading and special treatment, but this has been discounted as our expenditure costs have not disproportionately reduced, and if we were to reduce fees, we would therefore be subsidising the expenditure entirely. An increase greater than inflation has been considered but discounted due to the significant impact this would have on businesses, and we're not permitted to make a profit in particular on licensing fees. In terms of background, Chair, so obviously, as you know, we've been going through the various, the pandemic and the various lockdowns, but the types and the frequency of applications have more or less remained static, in particular in terms of the traditional street trading pitches. We've seen a slight fall in the massage and special treatment type premises across the borough due to the pandemic, and reductions in income for these various licences is offset by a reduction in compliance activities, but administration formalities, though, for my team remains the same. We've still got to follow through the same processes. An RPI increase of 3.5% for the discretionary fees is proposed for 2022-23. The traditional street traders will increase in their, will see an increase in their monthly invoices, so the increase is spread over the year, if approved. The massage and special treatment type operators will be provided with sufficient notice of the increase in time for their renewal of licences in the September of 2022. We have carried out benchmarking of the special treatment fees and street trading fees, as well as animal licensing fees. Haringey's costs remain quite comparative with other boroughs, but it's not so easy, as we're not in fact a market borough. So, you know, we don't have charter markets like the likes of Hackney and Enfields and so forth and Barnet, who have designated market sites, market locations, which they are able to generate income from, and then can offset what they make from those markets for their other street trading services across the borough. Haringey, we do not make any, as I say, we do not have any chartered markets, and therefore have to charge for full cost recovery across all street trading matters. The licensing service has put in place a reduced fee for pop-up type markets that have taken place in the borough, and in particular we have the regeneration team inspired market at Tottenham Green East, which is now a bona fide market. It does have planning permission to operate there as a market on a Sunday. The subsidy allowed for 6 trading days at an extremely reduced cost of £25. The service can no longer, the licensing service can no longer sustain that kind of a subsidy. So the proposal in this round of fees and charges is to put in place a charge of £40 for 3 days for initial trading. That's for new traders coming to trade at Tottenham Green Market. Thereafter, if they wish to continue to trade there on a Sunday, they would be paying the standard charge, which will be increased to £30 per day for trading there. Likewise, other pop-up markets that take place across the borough, we do have, you know, community groups and so forth that come and want to do market event days and so forth. So for them, it will be the standard flat daily charge rate of £30 per trader that they will be charged. The flat daily charge of £30 per trader, this reflects better the cost of administration. The council has worked with businesses in the past year to ensure any refund or stopping of changes, if that business has been impacted by COVID measures. We will continue to review this going forward. Having done this, it has impacted negatively on the budget, and in particular street trading, which must be self-financing without creating a profit. We are able to make some cost recovery as a minimum, with the inflationary increase being proposed. I've got there, Chair, at 5.5 a little bit more about street trading, and also mention the fact that I will mention that. So under the London Local Authorities Act, we were charging you know, there was a lot of income being being generated from businesses applying for tables and chairs licensing. Obviously, that has now gone because we now have the pavement licenses that were brought in under the Business and Planning Act, which now has a standard fee of £100 per year that is charged, whereas previously under the London Local Authorities Act, you know, if a business wanted to use the public highway to place their tables and chairs out, they were paying, you know, maybe £1,000 or something like that. So that's made a significant difference in terms of the income that the service is able to generate. Animal activities, that's more or less stayed as it is. That in fact we don't break even with, because we have to have a contract with the City of London vets, and for the amount of people that apply for a animal activities licensing, we are actually as a council having to pay the fee to the City of London vets in that regard to carry out all the inspections and so forth. The mass art and special treatment are set differently between authorities, and it's hard to compare them like for like. It should be noted that the Haringey fees charge for each therapist and what treatment that therapist is undertaking, but different boroughs do it in different ways. We do have some scrap metal collectors and site licenses that we have issued. Currently have 8 of these licenses in total. And in terms of the governance, this is at section 6. So the licensing committee has responsibility for the determining of the fees and charges under the Licensing Act and the Gambling Act. In addition, the committee exercises the functions which are stated not to be the responsibility of the Executive Cabinet in Regulation 2 and 1. Chair, throughout the report, you've got the contribution to the strategic income there at section 7. The Chief Finance Officer is also given their thoughts on this, and that they're recommending that the recommendation for all the non-statutory fees and charges to apply a 3.5 RPI increase is in line with the wider council fees and charges for the year 22-23. And you've also got there at section 9, Chair, the legal comments, and also the equalities comments are at section 10, Chair. And Chair, you've got at page 167 the table with the fees and charges. Sorry, C171, so it's gone off the page a little bit, but that's all been worked out, Chair. And if the committee are agreeing to the increase, in particular for street trading fees, we then need to go out to do a month-long public notice, and if there's any responses back from that, we will need to come back to yourselves on any responses that are gleaned from that, and have a further meeting if required. And there I can end, Chair, if you have any questions for me.
Thank you. Okay, I think that I could hear my voice twice. Councillor Harrison had his hands up. I will take questions and comments. Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of points I wanted to check there. On 169, on the second table, regulatory services continued, certainly on the online version, the first one up to 100 has been crossed out, the £976. Is that being removed, or is that accidentally been crossed out? The digital only version. I'm not sure about the print version. I don't have one.
Oh, I don't know what's happened there. Actually, you bring that up, Chair. Sorry, Councillor, you bring that up. That's for the exhibition fees. Yeah, it's only Alexandra Palace that's affected by that. Yeah. Top line doesn't really matter because they obviously it's not what they do. That figure doesn't really affect them. So you're looking at the 5,001 plus is what you're looking at for them, the bottom figure.
But that's not a new change that's being brought in. That's an accident, is it?
No, yeah, I don't know why that's come through actually.
Okay, all right. And then another one that I wanted to check was on page 175 for the street trading comparison table. It's got tables and chairs, and then Haringey, it's got weekly £15, but it's not, because it's based on the number of the square footage we have, isn't it? I think that's what one of the other tables said.
Haringey weekly, yeah. So there is for, well, that's for stalls and vans, isn't it? So their application.
No, the tables and chairs column.
Yeah, and then they get, it's the application fee and then £15 per square metre that is worked out across.
So if we're comparing that with the other ones, if
Sorry?
we're comparing it to the other ones, it's the other ones that are per square metre per week rather than just.
I know,
the
that's
weekly
why.
fee.
Yeah, I put it in there, but that's why I've said in the report it's really difficult to keep to do a like for like comparison on these, because each borough does their workings out or works them out differently. So
Yeah.
for us,
Okay.
you know, I've had to take
So,
take the nearest thing really to what we do comparison.
With the introduction of the pavement license, do we have a figure of how much the net impact has been on the budget, on the finances from that change over the last, well, nearly 2 years now, isn't it?
Yes. I don't have it to hand, but I can get the figure for you. I think I'd reported on it previously at one of the previous meetings, but I can get an updated figure and send on.
You can email it. Yeah.
I think it'd be useful to know, because then we know, you know, we might have made a loss, but if the loss is only £1,000, that's very different to £100,000, which I'm sure it's not.
£1,000. The last time we checked, I think we were looking, it was over 100k.
Oh,
So,
right.
Yeah, I will get an update and come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, and final question. You know, on the you mentioned that there's because of the case law that you referred to, it has to be a budget setting that, or it has to be break even. But is that it has to be break even, or it can't make a profit? I.e., could we be subsidising the department considerably within the bounds of the law? Or do we have to meet the break-even level within 5% either way or something?
Right. So if that's on particularly on street trading, that is. So if we made a profit on street trading 1 year, we would then be reducing the street trading fees the next year, so that we were giving back basically to try and keep things as proportionate and and stop us from being in credit, basically. We would have to.
Yeah, and it works the other way. If we're under, we'd have to put it up next year. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Councillor Rice and then Councillor Williams.
Can I just have a follow up on that? In case of COVID, where people weren't able to trade because of COVID, and they're paid up front for the year fees, are they entitled to a refund for the months and weeks they weren't able to trade through COVID? And just another small point. You talk about Tottenham Green being a pop-up market. Tottenham Green doesn't trade anymore on Sundays. There's no one there.
Unfortunately, I've got no control over whether or not people go to the market, Councillor.
It's obviously not either them under the potential clients.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not aware if the people are still going or not. I don't know if they've had a lull because of Christmas or so forth, but it is still a bona fide market in that it has planning permission to operate in that area as a market. So hence the reason why we need to set the fees. Okay. And in terms of do we give back, so our street traders in particular are all food business, they're all food orientated. So they're all fruit and veg sellers and so forth. They have continued to operate throughout all the lockdowns, obviously, because they're a food business. We've had one lady who is a flour seller. She has stopped trading, so she's not being billed or wasn't being billed throughout the lockdown. And similarly for the massage and special treatment premises, when September came around and they were needing to renew their licenses, as they have to by law, what we were doing was offsetting. It was a lot of additional work for the team, but we were offsetting the months that they weren't trading against what they were now needing to pay for their new license, basically. So yeah, we were balancing out and working with businesses along every step of the way, basically.
Okay. Can I ask you, you know, you mentioned earlier the financial loss of 100,000 more or less. How does the department cope with that?
Right. So it's something that obviously we know as a council that the government were talking about possibly bringing in the payment licenses full time going forward. Certainly through the LGA and through our licensing, Pan London licensing group, we are saying no to that, because obviously it has had such an impact, you know, on the income and so forth. We just have to wait and see, to be honest, Councillor. We don't know what's going to happen. You know, the previous legislation is still active. We've only had one trader who has opted to use the previous legislation, because then they're still able to have customers smoke in that outside area. So for them, it was worthwhile spending the 2,500 to be able to have the use of that area for the year, because their customers could smoke. But yeah, the majority of businesses are using the payment license route for this at the £100.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more questions or comments from anyone? It doesn't seem so. So shall we go to page 162, the recommendations, which says the licensing committee approves the fees of 2022-23 in the attached appendix 1. Can I ask whatever is being agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. Excellent. I think we all seem to agree. Thank you. I don't think we have any more business. Just to remind people, we're meeting at 4 p.m. on Thursday at the George Mill. Are you here, Sheila? It's on Thursday, 4 o'clock, Sheila, we're meeting.
Yeah.
Ratify the decision. Okay. And look and
Not all of us.
Sheila. Not all of us. It's just 3 of us, I think. But if you have energy, you want to come, we won't say no. Okay. Thank you.
Can I just say, I've just checked my electronic diary, and it does say George Meehan House. That's why I went there tonight.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
But now sent even emails and reminding people that we are meeting online. Maybe you missed that. Okay, I'm sorry, Sheila, about that. It's obviously a mistake.
I'm here now.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a nice evening. Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night and Happy New Year.